You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all. This is the X-Zone for Tuesday, February the 2nd, 2016. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. The X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right around this beautiful world of ours. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main radio website where you can listen to the X-Zone during the live broadcast Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. until midnight. And then the best of the X-Zone for the remainder of the 24-hour clock at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is no stranger to the X-Zone. He's no stranger to anyone who has ever thought of, anticipated, read about, or learned out-of-body experiences. William Buhlman is our special guest. He is a best-selling author and leading expert on the subject of out-of-body experiences. The author's 40 years of extensive personal out-of-body explorations gives him a unique and thought-provoking insight into this subject. His first book, Adventures Beyond the Body, chronicles his personal journey of self-discovery through out-of-body travel and provides the reader, that's you and I, with the preparation and techniques that can be used for our own adventures. Joining us now is William Buhlman. And William, welcome back to the X-Zone. Great having you with us.
Hi, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Hey, to you and yours, a very happy New Year, my friend. Tell me, is there anything new in the world of out-of-body experiences that you find earth-shaking, shattering, or even out of this world, let alone out of this body?
Well, the main thing that I find is that the answers are available to the big questions if we just take the time to learn to explore consciousness and to actually go beyond our biological bodies and look for the answers, explore the answers. In other words, the big questions like what are we, where did we come from,
right,
where are we going? These are the real important questions. I mean, it's strange that there's 7 billion people and very few people have a clue where they go when they die. It's kind of crazy because we have the capability of finding the answers if we're willing to expand our, let's just say, avenues of exploration beyond the outer crust of the universe, which is our biological bodies.
Well, why don't we start at the beginning, and why don't you explain to our listeners who haven't had the pleasure of hearing you before what an out-of-body experience is?
Essentially, as an out-of-body experience is the separation of consciousness from the temporary biological body, or vehicle of consciousness, and then entering into another dimensional realm where we can begin to explore. People call it the next major dimension, and many people in common literature call it the astral. But what we have found is that the universe is a multidimensional continuum, and that when people die, they go to the next dimension, essentially. They call it heaven and all these terms, but actually the non-physical universe, this multidimensional continuum, is the afterlife, and it is what heaven is.
So when you're describing that, I see a staircase, a never-ending staircase that one life leads to the next, and that one leads to the next. Is this the right perception?
Well, from a form-based reality, I think maybe a better way to look at it is that everything is here and now.
Right.
We have this kind of concept that things are separated, that heaven and not that the afterlife is up there. Mm-hmm. Everything is here. It's more of a way of looking at the universe in a more accurate way would be to look at it as levels of density, and that the afterlife is right here, right now. Dead loved ones are right here, right now. They're just vibrating at a different energy level. And when we die, we go to this next energy level that is just far more subtle. And there's a succession of these dimensions we have found. That's what's amazing. And that the universe is, the physical universe that we see is just it's like the epidermis, like the skin of an apple. That's how tiny it is in relationship to the inner non-physical core of the universe, which is always expanding.
So we're all here at the same time, just in different frequencies. That means do we ever really get born, or do we ever really die? No,
that's wild. I mean, the reality of our lives is more mind-blowing than any fictional work of art. No one has ever died, because consciousness cannot die. That's what's kind of wild. I mean, it's also it's not just a theory. You when you have an out-of-body experience, or same thing occurs when you have a near-death experience. You're moving into the inner non-physical a core of the universe, and you realize very quickly that consciousness has never died. People continue. When you die, you take your entire state of consciousness with you also, whether likes, good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
And so no one has ever died. What essentially I have found we're in is a massive training school of consciousness, where it's almost, and I hate to almost use this term because it gets taken out of context, but it's like a three-dimensional virtual reality where we learn from trial and error to control. We create our own dramas, we create our own issues, and then we have to confront them in the physical world. And we learn from our own lessons eventually, and then it's an evolutionary process of consciousness.
So if this is the classroom, what did we do prior to coming to this level to learn?
Well, that's what's so amazing. We've all had most people today, I feel, have had other incarnations or other experiences, because it's all part. You can't learn it all in one trip. I mean, that's just common sense. It takes a lot of different kinds of experiences to go through this gamut of education that we need. For instance, confronting our fears, expanding our state of consciousness so we can confront our limits, so we can begin to learn how to create our own reality in a very positive, very effective way. And humanity is learning this through trial and error. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, because we're immortal. That's what's kind of wild about it's a magnificent system we're actually in. It's a system of evolution. But the evolution is not the biological changes, it's the evolution of consciousness, using these biological bodies as tools of this evolutionary process, or this expansion of consciousness.
But how do we know that this is the way it really is, William, and that it's not like when we die, that's it, game over?
Well, that's the beauty of out-of-body experience. That's why I'm so passionate about this idea of people self-initiating their own experience. I don't want anybody to believe a word I say. That's the beauty of this. This is not about a belief system. We have the ability to self-initiate out-of-body experiences. I teach a 6-day workshop at the Monroe Institute where I train people how to have their own out-of-body experiences. It's quite intense. It's 12 hours a day. And everybody's in their own check unit. As you're probably well aware of the renowned Monroe Institute.
Of course,
we
sure.
use high technology sounds,
Yeah.
hemisync. We use all kinds of tools to help people get into an altered state and to begin to experience these states on their own. And this is super important, I think. This is all part of it. There's no belief system. I am very strong in my teaching that all beliefs are flawed.
Right.
Anything man-made is flawed. We have to base our exploration of consciousness on our own personal experiences, and we have to learn the skills to do this. Meditation is another way people learn to go inward. It's all about shutting down this monkey mind, this random thoughts that are constantly, and to begin to explore inward. And out-of-body experiences give us a mind-blowing opportunity to really prove this for yourself. And don't believe anything anyone tells you. Do the techniques for 30 days and discover the truth for yourself.
William, how can someone tell after taking one of your courses that what they're actually having is an out-of-body experience and not a dream?
Well, for most people, it's quite dramatic.
Okay.
And one of the things I teach is the difference, the different states of consciousness that do exist, and how to discern the differences between them. Because dreams are part of this continuum of consciousness that we enter. And, of course, lucid dreams are even more. It's another step inward, let's say, into this exploration of consciousness. Because, as you know, many people today are practicing lucid dreaming as a method. It's an easier approach than having a full-blown OBE. But what I have done and others have done, matter of fact, many others, you can take a lucid dream and through techniques you can enhance the lucidity of the dream and actually enhance it to the point where it becomes a fully conscious out-of-body experience, which is it's just totally mind-blowing. And because suddenly you're standing separate from your body, and you can begin to explore this other dimensional realm. People meet loved ones that have passed. They have the opportunity. Their full ego awareness is present. It's probably the best way to state it. And they know for a fact it's not a dream. Mm-hmm. They know for a fact that they are standing. Many people report actually seeing their body or some remnant of their body. And they begin to explore these, let's call it parallel worlds that exist just beyond their vision.
So it sounds as if we are a spirit that is entrapped in this physical body, and a way of escaping is through an out-of-body experience for just a brief period of time so that we can regain our spiritual reality.
Yes, I mean, in a way, all of humanity is, using an analogy, it's almost like everybody's in a prison.
Yeah.
Some people even have referred to it, and again, this is not the best analogies, but like the physical world is the matrix but it's a matrix of matter. And when we begin to have these experiences, whether it be through lucid dreaming or through deep meditation or trance work or out-of-body experiences, we begin to move inward into the non-physical core of the universe. And we begin to connect with who we really are, because what's wild, and I've written about this in my books, we are not humanoid beings. Soul or consciousness is no more, it's not humanoid, it's not flower,
right?
It's not dog or cat. We are pure consciousness using a temporary humanoid form to learn and evolve. Maybe in the future we'll use other forms. Who knows? But right now we're using this biological body. It's an effective tool of exploration of the physical world. And that's why I always get a kick out of all the talk about aliens. And to be frank, I mean, if you want to see an alien, look at everybody around you and look in the mirror. We're all aliens to the physical world. We're only here for a very temporary period of time. And then we all exit. We have all this in common. The problem is that people don't know what they are. They don't know where they're going. They don't have a clue what their purpose is. But yet they come up with these hundreds and thousands of theories about, the universe and everything when they don't know what they are. We have to begin at the core, and that is discovering what are we. If we're pure consciousness, it opens the doors to whole new realms, whole new levels of science, whole new levels of exploration.
So let me use a different analogy then. Instead of the staircase, could we say that we are just like the caterpillar, and this part of our journey is where we enter the cocoon, and on the other side, after this death, we emerge as a butterfly. We go through a metamorphosis, whether it be spiritually or physically.
Yes, in a way, both.
Yeah.
But when we emerge, what I have found and others have found is that the non-physical realms are incredibly thought responsive, and this makes perfect sense. In matter, things are denser and solid, and it takes longer for thoughts to have an impact. Eventually, all reality is molded. But when we're in the afterlife or in the non-physical realms, our thoughts and emotions have immense more creative power to mold and shape reality. So we have to remember that. In other words, this concept of heaven, it's a consensus reality of group individuals that have their group thoughts create these heavens or afterlife realities that you hear about all the time. It's consensus group thought that is molding this very subtle non-physical environment. This is our real home. And that's what's wild, is that as we're learning to focus our thoughts and to build our physical reality, that is part of the training we're here for. Because we have to learn how to focus our thought energy so we can be, let's just say, acceptable within these subtle thought-responsive realms.
William, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Great having you with us. It's always so interesting. And, wow, you've been doing this such a long time. I remember talking to you about the survey that you put online. And I think when I last talked to you, there were over 16,000 survey participants. Has that number gone up?
Yes. Oh, it's well over 20,000 at this point of people that have had out-of-body experiences and have completed the survey. It gives you, and that's just a small fraction of the people, of course, that are having these experiences. See, it used to be a time when people were afraid to speak up because it was too weird to mention, and people were afraid of peer pressure.
Sure.
Nobody wanted to sound weird, but nowadays people are waking up that, hey, this is normal stuff. This is what happens to people. Children especially have a lot of out-of-body experiences. People, as they approach death, are having a lot of out-of-body experiences. It's a natural part of our beingness because we're a non-physical being. What's strange is the idea that we'd be encased in a biological body for 80 years and never escape. That's a strange prison. The Buddhists have been saying this for hundreds of years. They just use different terms about the bardos and about how the humans are basically entranced by their addiction to matter and the senses. They say the same thing. They just use different terminology.
Well, no matter what you have here in this existence, you can't take it with you when you go. So what is the sense of acquiring and amassing all these physical properties when once you go, they're no longer of any use to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what many of the mystics and teachers, if you look at all the spiritual teachings of Jesus and a lot of the well-known master spirit, what people consider today would be spiritual, these guys were having what today we call mystical experiences. A lot of these people were having out-of-body experiences, and they awakened to this concept of, oh my God, these objects are meaningless. So why should I spend my life trying to acquire things? For instance, Buddha's a classic example. He was born a wealthy.
All right, William.
William,
we have to take our news break. Please stand by, my friend. Exonation William Buhlman is our special guest. www.astralinfo.org. That's www.astralinfo.org. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and you're watching us and listening to us live around the world on the X Zone Broadcast Network and our growing family of broadcast affiliates. The X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight, right here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. William and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
And it's been documented. This isn't theory. I mean, there's books, many hundreds of books. That's why a near-death experience is so illuminating for people. It gives them just a glimpse of their totality beyond the body. Out-of-body experiences are more controllable, and you can extend these experiences and actually begin to search for the answers of the big questions. That's why this is so critically important, I feel, especially in today's world where there's, increasing chaos with these belief systems that are now out of control.
What has been your greatest discovery doing an out-of-body experience yourself?
Well, there's been two, really. Number one was a revelation when I realized that I wasn't a human. Consciousness as a, because we're so indoctrinated in this self-identity that I'm a humanoid, that we have all these roles. And it took, I guess in the second or third year, I finally had an experience that I call kind of like a higher self experience. And I went beyond all form. And I realized that this essential I, that I'm not a biological being at all. I was just using a biological being for my education, for learning, for having experiences, for growing. And the other one was that the universe is a multidimensional continuum, and that the physical world is the epidermis layer. These two discoveries to me were just mind-blowing, because then everything started to fit together. Oh my God, we're in this vast continuum of dimensions, and each one is progressively less dense and more thought responsive. In a way, the physical world is like the kindergarten of the universe. It's like the dense training ground where people learn about what they are and what their capabilities are. And it really is. And as we continue to explore, we realize that we have immense capabilities of creation, that we can mold our thoughts. Focused thoughts have immense power, and that we have the ability to create nearly anything in the non-physical realms and mold it to our will, so to speak. But that takes responsibility. You have to learn that about your thoughts are things. And when you project out thoughts, everybody takes this, they don't think about what's the end result, but every thought is projecting energy out that is on some level returned to us. So we have to learn personal responsibility to control our thought processes, because they're incredibly powerful and creative. Anyway, those were the two main things that I found that were just life-changing. And then you realize, then you have to create a whole, it's so life-changing because then you have to begin to look at the world differently. Then everyone else is so obsessed with possessions and money and titles and all that, when none of that matters. That's a fleeting dream. Only thing that matters is the expansion of our consciousness, so we become more aware of who we are. And then we can begin to become evolved beings, truly evolved. I mean, I don't want to throw out this word spiritual is used too much, but it's the evolution of consciousness, and we do this by becoming effective explorers of our own consciousness. And that's what I feel is so needed today. People are being manipulated worldwide by belief systems because they have no personal knowledge of themselves. It's the greatest threat to humanity, is a lack of self-knowledge. It's the core problem of all the issues now facing mankind, because we don't know who and what we are. And since we don't know who and what we are, we latch on to flawed and false belief systems and theories and concepts that are leading the human race to self-destruction. If everybody had an out-of-body experience, there'd be nobody would be killing one another. You would wake up and realize, oh my God, if I hurt someone else, I'm only harming myself.
That raises a question. Why don't people universally have out-of-body experiences? Why isn't this common knowledge? Because of the self-identity. It's an indoctrination process. From birth, all of us have been indoctrinated to believe that we are a biological being. Our entire self-identity, everything around us, our parents, what have we been trained? Then we have these identities. I'm male. Mm-hmm. Over there is a female. I'm an American. We have all these roles. I'm a father. In other words, we have been indoctrinated into a false identity, this false humanoid identity. So people, it's religious identities, and there's layers and layers, hundreds of layers of false identities that have to be peeled away like an onion so that we can get to the core of what we really are. Because nobody's an American, or we're not American or Canadian. We're not a religion. None of those things have any reference point to what we truly are. And we have to begin to work on ourselves to peel away all of the bullshit, basically, that we've been conditioned to believe by our society, our educational system, and begin to really dig deep. It takes a lot of effort. And then what are you left with when you strip away all of the baloney that we've been taught? That's our core self. That's what needs to be taught, I feel, in our educational system, but it's not. Instead, it's just worthless meaning. A lot of it is, it's a continuation of the indoctrination. All right, but if you do not do certain things within society, whether you're a biological fallacy or whether you're a spirit, as long as you're in this realm of reality, there are certain things you have to do. There's no getting around or getting away from it. Like you have to pay your bills, you have to pay taxes, you have to do this, that, and the other thing. So what is the advantage then of an out-of-body experience is if when you return to your body, this reality hasn't changed?
No, but you have a different viewpoint. You've awakened, like the Buddha said. You are awakened to the reality of now you can make effective and priorities about what is important. Everything changes because your priorities change. You're no longer obsessed with the acquisition of objects and of yes, you have to. You still realize you have to build. So you have to have a house. You have to make a living. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a middle. As many people call it, the middle way. You have to gain your own middle way, where you realize that you're not of the world, but you have to play the game and do what's necessary to maintain to live, to exist.
Right.
So yes, there's a balancing act that's always done. And that is, I think that's a good point to bring up, because you have to still be we're in this world, and it's important. But it gives you your lesson. For instance, when things happen to you, you have a wider perception of why they've happened. You know, a lot of people repeat the same issues over and over their entire life, and they never understand that lesson will continue until it's resolved. And then you begin to look at your life from a higher perspective, let's say, and you can begin to see that every event, every interaction, every relationship is a training opportunity. It's an opportunity to grow. And that's how your life changes, because your vision of reality has changed, and your interactions with people change. You look at everything from a different perception, and you try to resolve as many of these energy issues as you can in this lifetime.
You said vision of reality. A vision is something that you can see. It's not tangible. So what better word could you use then instead of vision?
Perception of reality would probably be a more effective way of looking at it, because then it's all about priorities. Once you realize that the exploration of consciousness is important to obtaining the answers to the core problems, to the core issues. For instance, what does it mean to acquire the world, as they would say? You've earned hundreds of millions of dollars, but you still don't know what you are, where you come from, and where you're going. I mean, that's a pretty shallow look at. Yeah, you've acquired homes and you've acquired a bunch of temporary goods, but you're clueless about the nature of reality. This is what's important. That's why I feel the most critical thing that we need today is there needs to be a revolution in the exploration of consciousness, where we become active explorers, not believers. That's been the path that's been done for 3,000 years. Let's be a believer in this and a believer. Cancel out all the beliefs. The key is to become an active explorer of consciousness and begin to have your own, what used to be called mystical type experiences, and begin to explore these multi-dimensional realm we live in, so that you become knowledgeable about the nature of reality. I think the Buddha said it best when he used the word awakened. I mean, he didn't consider himself enlightened. He just called himself, I'm awake.
Yeah.
He's awake to the nature of reality and the temporary nature of it. And I think there's such a critical need today, especially with, like I said earlier, about the belief systems. It's so easy to be caught up in the game of this physical game that's being played, the facade, and never obtain the answers. And there's a downside to this. When people die, if they don't truly know who they are and what they are and their nature of their own reality, they end up in a not so pleasant, mundane reality that's very similar to the physical, because that's the only kind of reality they understand. In other words, people go to, our state of consciousness has a frequency. Every state of consciousness has a frequency, and we will resonate and go to the reality that resonates with us, our state of consciousness. If you're obsessed with physical things, you're going to only move. I use the analogy, most people when they die only move a quarter of an inch, because they're moving into the next dense layer of the universe, because that's what they're used to. In other words, they go where they're comfortable. They go where they feel at home, in their home.
That's the way they live their life, is they never step outside of their comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing with ghosts. I know you have so many different authors and speakers on your show, and that's what ghosts are. Yeah. People die. They go to I call it the parallel world. There's a parallel substructure to everything that we see around us right now. It's an energy substructure to all of matter. A lot of people that die go to that reality, which is very mundane, afterlife reality, but it's what they can comprehend. That's the only thing they know. They can't. How can we go beyond when that's all we know is our biological bodies and our physical possessions, how do you evolve beyond that and go to the higher dimensional levels of the universe? We have, in other words, billions of people, in a sense, imprison themselves in form-based realities.
What was it that happened in your life that made you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, when I had I was not a believer in this at all. I was in college actually, and I was studying psychology and sociology. This to me, if somebody told me somebody could leave their body, I would have just said, well, what are you smoking? I wouldn't have believed it. But a friend of mine had a spontaneous out-of-body experience, and he assured me, and I trusted him, that it was real, which happens. Most experiences, by the way, are spontaneous. And it was very brief, and then I began to explore it because I wanted to have the same experience. And it took me, I think, 24 days of constant. There was techniques I did called the target technique, and I did it every day for 24 days. And the end result was I had my first out-of-body experience. And, man, I went from being a total atheist and agnostic to a knower. I suddenly found myself outside of my body, and it was real, 100% real. And I could actually, it was a total life changer. I actually saw someone that was observing me, which scared, I'll be honest, it did scare me. Mm-hmm. And I immediately popped back into my body because I was afraid initially. But it was a change. And then I really, not only can I exist beyond my biological body, but other people live there, which of course, now I know that everybody lives there. Everyone who's ever lived lives there. It's a very crowded universe because no one dies. But that was a big awakening to me, and I realized, wow, I can obtain the answers this way. I can obtain verification, not just beliefs, because I was never a believer. I had rejected religion a long time ago, even in late childhood. I didn't buy it. Well, suddenly I knew that this is why, because the religions were flawed also. This is a scientific exploration of the universe. There is no religious overtones. Most of the religions got it wrong because they superimpose these concepts that have no bearing on the actual reality. The afterlife just is. It's a dimensional reality. People live just like they do here, except they don't have dense biological bodies.
And I'll bet you they don't have commercial breaks that they have to take either.
Yes.
William, we'll be back in 2 minutes. Please stand by. Exonation. William Buhlman is our special guest, www.astralinfo.org. And you know what? We'll be back on the other side of the short break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. To the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Manifestation is driven by imagination, intent, and passion. In our culture, all three have been distorted and disabled by modern media and exploitation. Re-engage your imagination and your passion by entering into the world of paranormal romance. Kahir O'Donnell takes her readers on an exciting journey into the endless possibilities of loving, passionate, and mutually respectful male-female relationship. Her latest book, The Long Dark Night, features special ops adventure, a daring rescue, a psychic woman from the stars, and a special agent that will die to protect her. The Long Dark Night by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or Amazon.com. listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Talking about out-of-body experiences this hour with our very special guest, a good friend of the X Zone, William Buhlman. His website is www.astralinfo.org. William, how does sleep paralysis and the vibrations that people sometimes report, how do they relate to OBEs?
Well, that's a great question. They are a prelude to out-of-body experiences. I and others, hundreds and hundreds of others, they're a normal prelude because it's part of the transition of consciousness that needs to occur. Mm-hmm. This whole idea of the vibrational state essentially is if you're laying in bed and you awaken, let's say, but you can't move your body, it's because you're starting to disconnect from the biological body. Many people experience vibrations, humming sounds. Sometimes these vibrations can be very intense. I get incredible letters from people saying that they thought it was an earthquake, and then they realized that it was them. Their energy body, it's not your physical body that's vibrating, it's your energy body. It's part of the separation, or what many people today call the separation response, where we're beginning to make the transition from our dense outer body, which is our biological body, and as we begin to shift our consciousness or transfer at least a portion of our consciousness inward to our next energy body, which is, many people call it the etheric or the astral. That is when all this is occurring. It's the natural process of disconnecting the biological body so that you can begin to have a conscious out-of-body experience. I have paralysis just about at every time I have an out-of-body experience. It's short-lived. It only lasts for maybe 30 seconds, and then you separate. This is very common. According to research, about 70%, 65 to 70% of people have some form of vibrational state phenomena, and which means there's a partial paralysis. And this is nothing to be afraid of. This is a problem. There's not enough knowledge about this subject. People become terrified. They think they're being abducted. They think somebody's doing something to them. That is not the case at all. It's a natural process of the transition of consciousness. Same thing occurs when people go into deep meditative trance and they begin to separate their consciousness from the body. For instance, during Kundalini yoga, people have these same type of experiences. So I like the broadness to just not OBEs. A lot of people, this is all about the expansion of consciousness beyond the biological body. And that's the beginning phase of it. And once you realize that, you can work with it and not become afraid of it. And many of your listeners, or many people have this on a regular basis because they're open to it. Many people are having, as the evolution of consciousness occurs globally, more and more people are having vibrational type experiences. And these experiences are all part of the expansion of consciousness from the biological body to our other inner energy bodies. It's a wonderful adventure once you begin to understand what it is. But for many people, if you don't know what it is, it can be very terrifying because your mind goes crazy.
Sure.
There's a lot of fear-based ideas out there that it's external and someone is doing something to you. That is never the case. I want to emphasize that. This is a natural process that occurs during an out-of-body experience for the vast majority of people. Some kind of phenomena will occur that will add to the, let's just say, disassociation from the biological body. And then consciousness is free to, let's just say, move beyond the body, the biological body, and begin to explore the next dimensional level of reality. It's very exciting exploration. And it's essential, I think, in today's world that this become a high note of we need to expand our knowledge or we will continue to be pawns of the powerful belief systems that manipulate the human race, whether it be religious or political.
Do you think the time has come where humanity no longer requires religious philosophies?
Yes, I think we're rapidly, to many people, evolution of consciousness is an individual process. But yes, for many people, I'm not saying for the masses necessarily yet. That's not what I'm saying, because the masses will always cling to their, let's just say, belief systems that give them comfort. But unfortunately, it provides no knowledge. The religions have totally failed to give us any real knowledge of the afterlife. Think about it. It's not even mentioned hardly in the Bible at all.
Well, when the prophets...
I mean, it isn't. Well, there's no guidance or preparation for the exploration of consciousness beyond the body.
Is it possible that in biblical times this was not known? Or if it was known, they couldn't explain it?
Well, I think they did explain it in their own way. St. Paul in 2 Corinthians talks about being out of his body. There's a lot of references, especially St. Paul talks about whether in the body or out of the body, I know not.
Yeah.
And they make reference to the third heaven is referred to. So what are they referring to? He didn't say heaven.
Hey,
he
listen,
said third heaven.
William, I hate to do this. We've run out of time for tonight. You're always welcome back here, my friend. Take care of yourself. Thank you for sharing with us. And to you and yours, always the best. You take care of yourself, friend. Exonation, William Buhlman has been our guest, www.astralinfo.org, and we'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.